So, talk into your microphone.
What would you like me to say?
Anything.
Anything at all?
Levels.
Okay. Is that good?
Keep going.
Oh, keep going.
Yeah.
I can't talk nonstop.
Sure you can.
No, I can't.
Just recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to do the 10 Commandments either.
Okay. If you say so.
Yeah.
Hello, and welcome back to RTFB. This is Travis, and today we have a special guest for what I think is our first ever bonus episode. Recently, I made good on my promise to watch the Dune movies with my mom, and since she's a big sci-fi fan and a Dune fan from way back, I asked if she'd come on and talk to me about them. So, no need to waste any time. Let's get back to my conversation with my mom, already in progress.
So, you and I have never met before, is that true?
That is not true.
Wait, what? Oh yeah, it says here in my notes, you gave birth to me.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, almost 41 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Confirm or deny?
Confirm.
Unfortunately, right?
Not unfortunately.
Okay. Well, thanks for agreeing to join me and do this. Like, you and I just recently finished watching the second Dune movie.
We did.
And you are known to me as somebody who is a fan of the series, so...
Yes.
Wanted to get some time to talk to you about it. So, like, I know you pretty well, but for listeners who might not, like, let's go over some of your SciFi Bone Fides. So, Star Trek or Star Wars?
Star Trek.
Which Star Trek?
All of them. Basically. All of them, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember watching The Next Generation all the time.
Next Generation was probably the biggest part, but yeah. I watched the original.
Yeah. And
I even liked the Deep Space Nine and all that came afterwards.
Deep Space Nine's really good.
Yeah.
What about Enterprise?
Enterprise was good too.
Yeah.
I didn't catch as much of that, I don't think. And maybe just because I was really busy.
Yeah. Yeah. And have you watched any of the new ones? Like, what is it, Discovery?
I did watch a little bit of Discovery. I started watching the Below the Decks one, and it was just too corny for me.
Well, it's supposed to be a comedy, right?
Yeah, it is, but
not
didn't seem like Star Trek-y enough for me.
Yeah. Have you seen Prodigy?
I don't think so.
Or is that the one where they're like, what's the one where they're redoing like old Star Trek stuff?
Oh, I did see, I can't remember what they called it, but what was the one
New
that...
Horizons?
Yeah.
Am I just making up names?
No, I think New Horizons might be right.
Okay.
I have not been able to do it like, when the original Star Trek and Next Generation, they were a once a week thing that you watched.
Yeah.
So you set aside the time to watch it, and now you can just kind of turn it on whenever. Don't always remember to watch it. Is this new, or, has it been out for a while?
Right.
So.
What about Picard? Did you watch that?
I did watch Picard. I liked that.
Yeah.
Just because I've always been a fan of Picard. He was always a deep thinker. Mm-hmm. Unlike Shatner, who was more of an action guy.
Yeah.
Picard is more like dignified, maybe? I don't know if that's really the word, but
yeah,
a little more British-like.
He wasn't hitting people over the head with both his fists.
Right. Not usually.
Not usually. But you do like Star Wars.
I do like Star Wars, yes. Yes, I just haven't kept up with all the recent ones for Star Wars so much.
Yeah.
I love the first three that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And have seen some of the things since then, but not as devoted a fan.
Yeah, there's too much of it now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of Star Trek too, but too much Star Wars series and stuff.
Well, and they go back and forth in time. Like some of them are pre and some of them are later. And so it's hard to keep straight for me.
Right.
What's happening when.
Yeah.
So.
Let me grab your phone real quick. I think I'm getting static on it. On the microphone. Sorry. Okay, so, what other, like, sci-fi book series have you liked?
Oh, gosh. Well, of course, the Anne McCaffrey, all of the Anne McCaffrey, the Dragon Lovers, Pern series, and she had too many to even mention.
Yeah.
Read all those. Gosh. Lots of Lois Bujold. Put me on the spot here. I'm trying to remember names.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been a science fiction fan for so long that it's like just about anything that came out.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I read.
Nice. So, when did you first read the Dune books?
Probably in the late 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would have been, I think, about college age. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. And how much of the series have you read?
I know I read at least the first 5. I like the first 2 or 3 the best. Then it got kind of convoluted for me. Had a hard time remembering who was who and where they were in time and all that kind of stuff. So got it was always political, but it got even more political, I think.
It got more political?
It got more political, yeah.
How is that possible?
Yeah, I know.
So you read it back in like the 70s. Do you remember what your reaction was to it at the time?
I very, very much enjoyed it. I liked the world setting of Dune being kind of a wilderness area. Yeah. And the whole sandworm idea with the spice that contributed to space travel. Yeah. So it was like a limited resource and they had the option to use it. And of course they abused it. Right. But the Freeman on Dune kind of controlled it, which was kind of cool. So anyway, I like that. Yeah.
I'm trying to put myself into like the headspace of what that might have been like. Cause like, of course I have the benefit of, watching Star Trek like every weekend and Star Wars and all sorts of sci-fi floating around. So when I finally watched it in my late 30s, read it in my late 30s, like, oh, I totally get this, but I'm trying to get a feeling for how it would have been, like, if I read it when it first came out. Like, was it radically different from the other sci-fi you were reading, or?
At the time, probably yes, because it was more like it's supposed to be way in the future. Yeah. But it was almost like a throwback to what was happening on Earth, because the Freeman always reminded me of like the Arabs and, the fact that they existed in an environment that was desert-like. And so they had to conserve all their resources, including their own body water, which was kind of cool and gross at the same time.
Yeah, I like that. Cool and gross.
Yeah. And the fact that they were considered primitive, but yet they were living with their environment, so they were adjusted to it. So in that sense, they weren't technologically advanced, but they were, they understood, they understood the desert so well because they'd had to survive in it. Yeah. Whereas the other people coming in from out were like, what is this? No water? How do you exist? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think if oil gave you psychic powers, then it would be pretty much 1-for-1 comparison to some of the Middle Eastern stuff that was going on. But yeah, I like that too. I like how, they kind of go out of their way to show yeah, these aren't the same kind of cultures, but they both had their advances. Like, they both have their technological adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
So the Fremen aren't like flying in between planets, but they found a way to live with basically not nothing, but
they found a way to harness the worms to travel great distances.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea of that was almost like, who first discovered that you could climb up there and separate the segments so that the worm wouldn't go back underneath the sand and would stay on the surface and could take you long distances without being eaten.
Yeah. I mean, I think he said something similar in this second movie when they jammed that needle in the baby sandworm's throat. Like, who realized you could do this? Like, who had an infant sandworm they accidentally drowned and then anyway.
Yeah. I always envisioned that probably happened by accident.
Yeah.
And somebody just took advantage of it.
Yeah.
Said, oh, wait a minute. What did I just do? What had just happened?
Right. So, general reactions to the movie. Like, what did you think about these two movies? And in particular, like, is this the kind of thing you were envisioning when you first read these books?
Basically, yes. And I have to be honest, I haven't reread the Dune books in many, many years, so I'm relying on memory.
Yeah.
I do know that the books were fairly violent, especially when they were, when they had the dukes and the emperor and all that going on. I always kind of skip past the part where somebody's getting their throat slit. I don't really envision that. That kind of stuff is a little hard. It felt a little more violent, but then I remember back now, the books were pretty violent too. Even the whole test for the Bene Gesserit.
Bene Gesserit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where they have to stick their hand in a box and be tortured.
Yeah.
To see how long they can stand it.
Yeah.
So.
I guess, I mean, when I watched the first one, like, I liked how in this version they made it very practical looking. Like all the spaceships looked like something that, you could probably go build this. Whereas at the time, like, and Frank Herbert, right? Frank Herbert?
Yep.
Wrote these, the kind of sci-fi you're having was like, I don't know, the day the Earth stood still, like flying saucers and stuff.
Well, yeah. Although, we were traveling into space by that time, so it wasn't that foreign. And Star Trek, of course, I think introduced most people at that time to what it could be like.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite the same as watching, the spaceships take off and landing on the moon and that kind of stuff, but. For me, at least, spaceships were not that big a deal.
Yeah.
I did like in the movie how they made the helicopters look like dragonflies. I was like, that's cute. I didn't get that from the book.
Yeah. Well, same. Like when I first saw them, like, oh, that's cool. But then I thought they called them ornithopters. So
yeah,
that's probably exactly how he was thinking of them.
Yeah.
Something similar. So.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool.
So, a couple of themes that I kind of grappled with between the book and the movies. And with the, asterisks that with the movies, some of this could just be because with a movie you don't get the same internality. So things are just kind of presented on the face value. But was Paul actually psychic? Or is Spice just that crazy that he's like, I'm seeing the future, man? Like,
I think that he had the ability, at least at first, he was somewhat, not really psychic, but at least he was seeing some of the future, but the spice enhanced it. Yeah. And I think spice, that is one thing in the movie. I think in the book, they really did dwell on the fact that if you indulged in spice long enough, you would have strange dreams or, wasn't necessarily tell the future, but I think his unique genetics, combined just right, that then with spice, it just, exploded.
Right.
And he didn't know that was going to happen, of course.
Yeah.
But then once it was almost like being addicted.
Right.
Which is basically what they said. The Freeman kind of became addicted to spice and couldn't live without it.
Yeah.
But it opened up I always envision it as seeing many, many paths into the future and trying to decide, well, which one do I choose?
Right.
And how do I make it happen? And I never felt like, I felt like he chose what he thought was the best, but he wasn't really sure.
Yeah.
And then it exploded across the galaxy or whatever.
Right.
So he started something with the intention of it being a good thing. And was it really a good thing? I don't know. It got kind of out of control.
Yeah. I think, not to spoil the next book, but I think we'll find not such a good thing. Maybe good for him. But, yeah, that's kind of how I went back and forth with it in the movie, right? Because in the book, I think it is pretty clear that he's writing it like he is either actually psychic or his training and upbringing was so that he was so perceptive to things. Like, he and his mom could communicate just with like a side eye, a glance or a gesture, and he would know, here's 6 or 7 things I need to do based on how she moved her finger. So he was either actually 100% psychic and seeing the future, or he had been trained to be so perceptive that it didn't really matter if he was or not. He could just, process all of that stuff at a superhuman level.
He had definitely been trained, and I think from both angles, it was all the fighting and that kind of stuff from his dad's side.
Yeah.
The weapons training and the strategy of war and all that. And then his mom was, she was all the mental things.
Yeah.
And the training that way and how to use the voice and how to control other people, because that was kind of her background,
Yeah.
It was just.
Yeah.
And of course there was the whole thing where she wasn't supposed to have a boy. She wasn't supposed to let her body have a boy, and she set it up so she could. So she was kind of on the outs with them, but she still had the powers.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the other thing I wanted to dig into a little more is like, the Bene Gesserit have set up any number of prophecies over however many millennium. And again, this might be kind of a moot point. Like, does it really matter if it's A or B? But it was like, did they set up this prophecy just thinking that it will be a useful tool later on, and we're going to use it to control whatever and ultimately, have influence over everything? Or was it they made a prediction and over so many years eventually it accidentally became true?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I think they did set in several ways the future could go, and they had it planned. And I think all of them would have benefited them in the end. It was like, we can take path A or path B and we'll still get to where we want. But then Jessica came in and did what she wasn't supposed to do.
Right.
And too early in their planning of their strategy, there was now a male who could, he had all the powers of both sides, and I don't think they were ready for it yet.
Yeah.
And so they didn't know what to do, they wanted him destroyed basically because he wasn't part of their plan yet.
Yeah.
He was, but down the road.
Right.
So.
Right. And he wasn't even supposed to be born, right? He was supposed to be,
right.
I don't know, maybe his sister, but, so yeah, I think that's probably where I don't know, maybe I need to watch this Dune Prophecy show.
Oh, that's true.
To see what they're talking about as far as the background there, but.
Yeah, because I don't think the books ever went into beforehand, did they? Maybe some of the later ones did, but is like that. The Dune, the first book, is the starting of all this story.
Yeah.
I don't think they do a whole lot of going back to how they got up to that point. So it'll be interesting to see that.
Yeah. And I guess, is it one overarching goal, or is it just they're using whatever they can to maintain their influence? Like, did they ever have a plan to have the, what is it? Not Lisan al-Gaib for them, the Kibswatch Haderach. Was that ultimately going to be their, like, winning move, basically?
Yeah. I didn't remember the names, but yeah, I think that was their ultimate goal, was to have whoever was the top leader, the big influencer, being kind of under their control so that they could do what they wanted to do, which I don't know that they ever said what that was that they wanted to do besides control. But
seems like they have a pretty good deal of influence anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. This is something I kind of bumped up against my first time through, but I don't know, maybe the second time around I kind of got it a little more. But so in the books, Chiani, I feel like, was just kind of cool with everything. Seemed like she was supportive of Paul, and like, she's like, I'll support you through whatever, and what do you need to do? Like, go and do it. I'll be your, like, Fremen bride, and you do what you need to do with the princess to make sure that Fremens aren't messed with. But in the movie, it seemed like she had a more negative response to him. Like,
yeah, I kind of got that too.
She really understood what he was trying to tell her was going to happen. Like, was she just being supportive at first, thinking this is never going to actually happen?
Yeah, I don't think she had any concept of the whole ramifications of, I mean, to her, Paul was kind of an outsider, you know, but came in and adopted their ways, and, you know, they fell in love and all that. I don't think she realized how influential he was going to become. So yeah, I got that from the movie too, and I don't remember it in the book. I mean, surely there would be some resentment because he was going to go off and marry somebody else.
Yeah.
But I think that was removed enough from where she was that maybe that, you know, she's like, well, yeah, you go off and do your thing, but in the movie they made that pretty clear, and maybe that was just to add another dimension to the whole movie.
Yeah. How did you feel about how they presented his sister in this one?
Kind of weird, although
right?
I do remember that he could communicate with his sister before she was born. I didn't remember that he could, but I remembered that Jessica could.
Yeah.
And that was all because of the spice influence, supposedly.
Right.
Because that seemed like a new thing. But I was surprised that he could. I didn't remember that. So either I've forgotten it from the book, or they stuck that in just for fun.
I feel like there's like maybe a throwaway line somewhere in there where he's like, oh, I talked to her also. But I liked in this movie where you could see half of the conversation. Like, Jessica would do something and be like, shh, quiet. I'm talking right now. But did you want to see, you know, a 2-year-old born with all the wisdom of all the women of eternity?
No.
Who's gonna, like, stab the Baron in the throat?
I think that'd be way too scary.
Yeah.
Just way too scary.
Yeah. Just side note, did you ever see the David Lynch version of Dune?
No, I never did.
Patrick Stewart and Dean Stockwell and the guy from Twin Peaks whose name I always forget.
No, I never did see that one.
Oh my god, we gotta watch that one next. Because they went there. His weird adult 2-year-old sister. Do you think that in the movie women got a pretty fair shake? I feel like for the book, I definitely got a very pro-feminist type of vibe out of it, where, you know, the Bene Gesserit are the ones really pulling the strings behind the scenes for everything. You know, his mom is very crucial in helping him survive after the attempted assassination. Chiani has a lot of influence with the tribe, if you want to call it that. And even his sister later on, it's basically like his, number two, helping him run things.
Interesting. No, I hadn't really thought about it that way, but you're right. The women, at least behind the scenes, had a more powerful role than in a lot of even science fiction that I've read. I still felt like, especially like there were dukes, that had the little fiefdom type things.
Yeah.
But you didn't hear of any women that were real powerful except in the religious sense, maybe. Yeah. The freemen were different because the freemen were more of survivalists, I think. And it was like, if you could survive, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It almost seems like maybe he's setting it up for this trilogy to be like at least partially driven by the specific woman who's helping him out at the time. Because the first movie was really about, him and his mom trying to survive.
Right.
And not that she wasn't in the second one, but I felt like her role was a lot diminished. She was doing a lot of things, kind of, planting seeds with the Fremen while he was really learning how to survive with Shani.
Yeah, true.
And I could see him working with his sister in the third one more.
Well, as I remember, now again, it's been a long, long time ago, but in the first couple of books, he is such a major character. And then as you get into the other books, it's like he's kind of launched the jihad, and then he kind of fades into the background.
Yeah.
It's like he put something into motion that he almost can't accept what the consequences are.
Right.
I mean, he kind of knows, but it's different to actually see something like that happen. And of course, this movie didn't get into that yet. But
right.
But I kind of felt like he was a pawn. He was like placed there and had all these influences, both from his mom's side and his dad's side. And then when he got onto Dune, it was like, no, I'm breaking out and doing my own thing kind of thing. So, yeah, interesting.
Any other final thoughts about the movies?
I like seeing the sandworms. They did a good job portraying them. Kind of what I had always envisioned.
Yeah. I really liked all the different planets. I felt they did a really good job of visually making them different.
Yes.
And they spent a lot of time on wherever the Harkonnens live in this one. I thought that was trippy and cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
The weird water balloon fireworks and stuff.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. But yeah, they did do a good job of it. And what I'm remembering is that these books came out when the environmental movement was kind of in full swing. So, that's kind of how I've always viewed it, is that, Arrakis was so desert-like that, everything, was affected by the environment.
Yeah.
Where they were from, and I can't remember what it was, but it was a water planet. Caladan?
Yeah.
Caladan. Right. And so Paul especially was thrown into this environment that he was totally unfamiliar with, but yet he managed to adapt by, being friends with the locals and learning from them.
Yeah.
I mean, he had done some training and stuff ahead of time, but it's got to have been, or I think of it as having been so different from what he was used to.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
And as a certified natural or master naturalist, I bet you're okay with that message.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Perfect. Well, if somebody watched Dune for the first time and maybe read the book and really liked it, is there anything else, movie or book, that you can recommend they check out also? I'm putting you on the spot again, but...
Anne McCaffrey has a series that's really, really good. I'm not going to remember. it's about miners who have to go in and mine a specific kind of, the crystal singer, obviously.
Oh, crystal singer.
Yeah. They go in and mine crystals out of this planet, and if they don't immediately, they laser cut the crystals out. If they don't immediately pack them away, it has an influence over them.
Okay.
And they get what they call thralled, where they just kind of, I almost think of it like a drug, you know, they lose large periods of time just admiring this crystal.
Oh, wow.
And that reminds me of it kind of just because of something in the environment that influences you so much that you have to adapt to it.
Yeah. That's
so
interesting.
Yeah, that's a good series.
Crystal Singer.
I've got the books if you want.
I still got a big stack of stuff from you. I have to go.
Oh, I still have a big stack of stuff from you too. So
it's sitting right over there. The Children of Dune. Any other ones come to mind?
I'm sure I could come up with some, but
all right. Well, if you think about them, text me and I'll throw them in the show notes or something.
Okay.
So we also do a section on here called "What Else Is Good." So, what else are you reading or watching or enjoying right now that you could recommend in general for people?
I'm actually reading a silly book right now. I'm doing Ivanovich, Janet Ivanovich.
Yeah.
Her silly New Jersey bounty hunter, the latest one there.
Silly New Jersey bounty.
Well, you know, she's a New Jersey girl who gets desperate to find a job, so she starts working for somebody who's like her uncle, I think, or something, as a bounty hunter to make money. Mm-hmm. And she's not very good at it, but she keeps managing to connect with people who help her out or whatever. And anyway, it's just kind of silly just to imagine somebody who's this poor girl has gotten her house firebombed. She's lost many, many cars. Either somebody wrecked them or, you know, firebombed, or, you know, it seems like every time she goes after somebody, they manage to ruin her car.
Okay.
So,
this is
anyway.
The Stephanie Plum series?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so I think this is like number 23 or something.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is like the one for the money.
Yes.
It's like the numbered series.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're up to how many? 25?
Yeah, maybe it is 25.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I've been reading those for a long time.
Wow.
How
many cars has she gone through now? Like,
a lot.
Okay.
And it's really odd because she's involved with a guy who's a local policeman who she went to school with. And then she's also involved with this guy who's he provides security services for businesses. So he's like very wealthy and has everything the way he wants it. And when she needs a car, he provides some nice car for her. So he's kind of like watching out for her, and they're sort of, but not really romantically involved.
Yeah.
Very strange, but it's like she always lands on her feet. So.
All right.
So it's just a fun.
There's a lot to dig into there too.
Yes.
26 books to go through. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we're good.
All right.
Well, thanks again for joining me to do this.
Sure.
Really enjoyed it.
Okay, that was our session for today. Many, many thanks to my mom for agreeing to come on for the chat. I thought it was a lot of fun, and hopefully you enjoyed it too, and maybe came away with 1 or 2 more books to add to your TBR piles. Very quick on second thoughts today. The Star Trek show that we were trying to remember the name of was not New Horizons, but was, and is in fact, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which I hear is really good. So maybe I'll use my Paramount Plus account to watch something other than Knuckles and Ninja Turtles. Who knows? Today's episode was in some ways 3 years, and in some other ways 50 years in the making, with thanks to Judy Mother Superior Rowe. It was edited by me, Travis Rowe, and was sponsored by no one in particular. Until next time, call your mother every once in a while. You know how she worries. And of course, keep fucking reading.
Sure this is in the right place. Get my notes. And then we're good.
Oh, you made notes?
Well, I have to remember what to talk about,
Oh, that's true.
You know how sometimes your phone does the thing you want it to do?
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes it does something completely different?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All the time.
All right.